If you've ever wondered what it's like to live in one of the happiest countries on Earth, you're in the right place. Welcome to Denmark, a place where work-life balance isn't just a buzzword. Biking is basically a national sport, and the concept of hygge makes even the darkest winters feel cozy. But what is daily life in Denmark really like? Is it all just fairy tale castles, perfectly designed furniture, and an endless supply of pastries? In this video, we're diving into the everyday rhythms of life in Denmark and explore what makes this small Scandinavian country such a fascinating and surprisingly functional place to call home. The Danes have often been referred to as some of the happiest people on the planet. This claim is not just a marketing gimmick. In the 2024 World Happiness Report, Denmark ranked second, right behind Finland, with an impressive score of 7.583. That's not a fluke. Denmark has been topping these charts for years. But what actually makes life here so good? A big part of it comes down to something most people dream of: work-life balance. And Danes? They've pretty much mastered it. According to the OECD, only 1% of Danish employees work very long hours. Compare that to the global average of 10%, and you start to see why people here are so content. On average, Danes spend about 16 hours a day on personal time, whether that's relaxing, socializing, or enjoying hobbies. Now, let's talk about the work part of that balance. The standard work week in Denmark is around 37 hours, which means no one's stuck in the office until midnight, drowning in deadlines. Plus, the country's labor laws emphasize flexibility. So, if you need to pick up your kids or just want to leave work a little early, that's usually not a problem. Speaking of kids, Denmark makes raising a family way easier than in most places. State-subsidized daycare, generous parental leave, and strong support for working parents mean that moms don't have to choose between their careers and their families. In fact, Denmark has one of the highest percentages of new mothers staying in the workforce. And on top of that, it boasts one of the lowest child poverty rates in the world. So, what's the secret? It all comes down to a social system that actually supports people, ensuring that life isn't just about working to survive, but about living well. And that's something Denmark does better than almost anyone else. In Denmark, the government essentially acts as a safety net for its citizens, and it's one of the most robust systems in the world. First off, healthcare in Denmark is free and universal. This means that regardless of your income or job, everyone gets access to quality healthcare without the looming threat of crushing medical bills. In fact, Denmark spends around 10% of its GDP on healthcare, which is among the highest in the world. But it's not just about affordability. Denmark's healthcare system is ranked as one of the best globally, with an emphasis on preventative care and patient satisfaction. Then there's education. Primary and secondary education are free for all Danish children, and the quality is top-notch. Denmark's education system is known for its focus on critical thinking and creativity, rather than rote memorization. Universities are also free, which means Danish students aren't burdened with the kind of student loan debt that's all too common in other countries. In fact, many students even receive a monthly stipend from the government to help cover living expenses. And here's where things get really interesting. Denmark also offers a unique form of job security. While other countries may leave people to fend for themselves during tough economic times, Denmark has what's called a flexicurity model. This combines a flexible labor market with generous unemployment benefits. If you lose your job, the government will support you financially while you search for new work, and they don't just toss you aside after a couple of months. You'll also have access to training and education programs to help you stay competitive in the job market. In fact, Denmark's unemployment rate sits at around 4%, which is impressively low by global standards. And when people do find jobs, they're likely to stay in them for longer periods, because the job market values stability as much as flexibility. So, it's not just about taking care of people when they fall on hard times. It's about giving them the tools to succeed long-term. This kind of system isn't just a nice idea. It's rooted in a philosophy that prioritizes collective welfare. The Danish government believes that a well-educated, healthy, and supported population is essential for the country's prosperity, and it's willing to invest in its people to make that happen. In return, Danes are often more willing to pay higher taxes because they know they'll get a lot in return. It's a system built on trust, both in the government and in each other. And it works. Now, let's shift gears and talk about something that's really been taking the world by storm: Denmark's commitment to sustainability. This isn't just about being green in a trendy way. It's a deep-rooted part of Danish culture, and it's shaping nearly every aspect of life in the country. One of Denmark's most impressive feats is its dedication to renewable energy. If you've ever taken a trip around the country, you've probably seen the massive wind turbines dotting the landscape. Denmark is a global leader in wind energy production, and in fact, the country gets around 50% of its energy from renewable sources, with wind power accounting for a substantial chunk of that. Denmark's goal is to be completely carbon neutral by 2050, and it's taking big steps to reach that target, including investing in innovative green technologies like wind farms offshore and sustainable urban planning. But it's not just about energy. Denmark's urban design is also incredibly eco-friendly. Copenhagen, the capital, is frequently listed as one of the world's most sustainable cities. In fact, the city aims to become the first capital in the world to be carbon neutral this year, 2025. That's right. How? Well, Copenhagen's government has focused on reducing car traffic, investing in public transportation, and promoting cycling, which is already the preferred mode of transport for many Danes. Over 50% of Copenhageners commute by bike every day, which not only helps reduce emissions, but also makes the city's air cleaner and its streets more livable. Then there's the food. A key part of the Danish food scene is the emphasis on locally produced seasonal ingredients. Organic food is readily available, and there's a strong push for minimizing food waste. In fact, Denmark has set a goal to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. And initiatives like We Food, a store dedicated to selling surplus food, are helping make that possible. From the clothes you wear to how you commute, sustainability is something that Danes live and breathe. It's not a trend or a one-off initiative. It's a way of life that's been carefully cultivated over decades, and it's something the Danes take immense pride in. It's clear that for Denmark, sustainability is more than just a buzzword. It's a commitment to preserving their stunning natural environment for future generations. And when it comes to making the world a better place, Denmark is showing the way. Danes are known for being incredibly hardworking, but also for valuing downtime and personal well-being just as much. This approach to life is built on a foundation of Hygge, a word that doesn't have a direct translation in English, but it's one of the core elements of Danish culture. At its core, Hygge refers to a cozy content feeling that comes from simple pleasures. Whether it's enjoying a warm cup of coffee on a cold day, gathering around the dinner table with friends and family, or just sitting back with a good book and a blanket, Hygge is about finding joy in the little things. It's not just about comfort. It's about creating an atmosphere that makes you feel safe, relaxed, and connected. In the workplace, this philosophy translates to a collaborative approach rather than one that's highly competitive. Danish work culture places a huge emphasis on teamwork and respect for individual boundaries. While Danes work hard, they also know when to shut off and enjoy their personal lives. That means no late-night emails, no stressing about tasks during the weekend, and most importantly, no glorifying the idea of the always-on worker. Work-life balance is considered essential to a happy, productive life, and it's something that's actively promoted at every level. But it doesn't stop there. Denmark's low hierarchy in the workplace allows for open communication and idea sharing between employees and managers. It's not uncommon for a junior employee to voice their opinion directly to top executives, something that's much rarer in other countries. This openness leads to more innovation and a greater sense of empowerment among workers. The idea is that a happy, balanced workforce is a more motivated and productive one. This relaxed yet effective work culture is also reflected in the social fabric of Denmark. People tend to live by the philosophy that work should serve life, not the other way around. Unlike many countries where working late or taking fewer vacation days might be seen as a sign of dedication, in Denmark, it's actually encouraged to take your full vacation days and to leave the office on time. The idea is that taking care of your personal needs makes you a better worker in the long run. And let's not forget that Hygge plays a major role in Danish social life too. This sense of cozy, comforting togetherness isn't just reserved for the home. It extends to friendships, social gatherings, and even public spaces. Whether it's having a chat over a cup of coffee or enjoying the serenity of a quiet park, Hygge helps create strong, meaningful connections in a society that values both social interaction and personal space. If you're looking for a society where gender, age, and social class don't dictate your opportunities or your worth, Denmark is definitely a place that sets the bar high. It's one of the most egalitarian countries in the world, and that's reflected in nearly every aspect of life here, from the workplace to education to government policies. For starters, Denmark consistently ranks as one of the best countries for gender equality. In fact, it was one of the first countries in the world to allow women to vote, way back in 1915. Today, Denmark's government and private sector continue to focus on gender parity, with strong policies in place to ensure equal opportunities for women in both education and the workforce. As of recent reports, women make up over 40% of Denmark's top executives and hold 38% of parliamentary seats. Not bad for a country that's been embracing gender equality for over a century. But it's not just about gender. Denmark also places a high value on social equality, making sure everyone, regardless of their background or income level, has access to the same opportunities. This is especially evident in the country's education system, where every child, regardless of their family's wealth, has access to high-quality schooling. The Danish government provides generous financial support for students at all levels of education, from primary school to university, helping ensure that education is available to everyone, not just the privileged few. And this focus on equality extends to healthcare too. As we mentioned earlier, healthcare in Denmark is free and accessible to all, regardless of income. Whether you're a millionaire in Copenhagen or a factory worker in Jutland, your access to medical treatment is the same. This universal healthcare system is part of Denmark's broader commitment to social welfare, which aims to minimize the disparities between the wealthy and the less fortunate. The idea is that a society thrives when everyone has a fair shot at a good life, whether that's through access to education, healthcare, or basic needs. Now, let's talk about one of the most fascinating aspects of life in Denmark: social trust. Denmark is often described as one of the most trusting countries in the world. And this trust isn't just between individuals, but also between citizens and their government. In fact, Denmark regularly ranks at the top of global trust surveys. Over 70% of Danes say they trust their fellow citizens, and around 80% trust their government. Why is this important? Because high levels of social trust contribute to a more cooperative, cohesive society. It means people are more likely to follow the rules, contribute to the greater good, and rely on the welfare system when needed. This trust is also a huge factor in Denmark's low crime rates and high levels of civic engagement. People feel safe in their communities and are more likely to participate in public life, whether that's voting, volunteering, or supporting local businesses. So, with all this talk about work-life balance, sustainability, and a high quality of life, it's natural to wonder, what does all of this cost? Well, as you might expect, Denmark isn't exactly cheap, but when you take into account the many benefits that come with living here, it's a little easier to see why the cost of living is what it is. First off, Denmark has some of the highest taxes in the world. and that's part of the reason the country can afford such a strong social safety net. On average, Danes pay around 45% of their income in taxes. However, this is offset by the extensive public services they get in return, things like healthcare, education, and even free public transportation in some cities. So while it may feel like a hefty chunk of change comes out of your paycheck, it goes directly into maintaining the country's high standard of living. When it comes to housing, prices can be high, especially in Copenhagen. The city has become increasingly popular in recent years, leading to rising rent prices. That being said, it's not impossible to find affordable housing if you're willing to look outside of the main city centers or live in shared accommodations. For example, rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the city center of Copenhagen can cost around $1,500, while outside the center, it could drop to roughly $1,000. However, as with most European cities, living costs are much lower in smaller towns or rural areas, and the transportation system makes it easy to get around no matter where you live. Food prices in Denmark are also on the higher end, particularly if you prefer organic or locally sourced items. A typical grocery bill for a single person could range between $300 to $450, depending on where you shop. However, eating out at restaurants can be a bit of a splurge. Expect to pay around about $22 for a meal at a mid-range restaurant. The upside: the food is often fresh, of high quality, and prepared with care, which makes the extra cost worth it for many people. However, it's not all about the big-ticket items. Denmark's generous welfare system ensures that Danes don't have to worry about things like medical bills or skyrocketing tuition fees, something that people in many other countries often face. Plus, the emphasis on sustainability means that many Danes find ways to save money by relying on public transport or biking, which can significantly reduce their living expenses. To sum it all up, life in Denmark is a mix of high-quality services, a strong sense of equality, and a general feel-good culture that's built on balance and sustainability. From the free healthcare and education to the emphasis on work-life balance and a sense of collective responsibility, Denmark is a place where people genuinely seem to care for one another. Sure, the cost of living can be high, but when you look at the bigger picture, generous social programs, a well-functioning society, and one of the best work cultures around, it's clear that Danes are getting a lot of bang for their kroner. Living in Denmark may not be for everyone, especially if you're used to a lower cost of living. But if you're seeking a life where happiness, equality, and sustainability aren't just ideals, but a way of life, Denmark could very well be the model for the future. This brings us to the end of the video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.